And joining me now, everybody, is Paul Imig of FoxSports.com.
It's 2011 again.
Better Call Paul. And Grant Bilse of the Wisco Sports Show.
I remember listening to Paul on the Bill Michaels Show, and Radio Joe had the Better Call Paul intro. It was electric.
Yeah.
I remember very well.
I did like Joe. Joe produced that really well. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, you just put one soundbite on top of audio. It's not like he's Chris Tannehill down at the Score putting down montages. The last time I went on the Score, they had a montage of like things I've said over the years about Rodgers.
Whoa!
It was like, whoa! Thanks. This is cool.
Yeah.
Just a humble brag that I go on the Score sometimes.
You got a montage. That's a brag too.
Yeah, and you always fade out in a montage. That's very important.
Always fade out in a montage.
All right, so
Grant, you get that reference, Grant?
No, that's okay.
That movie would have come out like when Bart and I were like freshmen in college.
What movie?
America.
Team America.
Team America.
Team Police.
World Police.
World Police.
Yeah,
that was like 2004.
It was college for us, old ass losers. That was it's 2023. That was 20 years ago.
Messed up.
All right,
you guys look like you just graduated yesterday, by the way. You both look great.
All right, everything aside, we'll talk some sports here of what we can. Paul, you are the quiz master, so quiz away.
All right. Well, we didn't do this last week because of Christmas and holidays and everything else. So there's been a gap in the middle. And so the last time, Bart, that you and I did the show, and certainly the tone has changed, was it 3 or 4 weeks ago since it was the two of us plus Grant? I think they were 4-8 when the three of us last got together. And Bart, even when we got together 2 weeks ago for this segment, I had a topic, and it was, let's talk playoff scenarios. Or mm-mm. And you were just like, what? No, we're not doing this. Things have changed pretty quickly. So here's what I just want to ask. This is like the most elementary question I could possibly ask, but I think we have to start there. The Packers are beating the Lions on Sunday and going to the playoffs. Or mm-mm.
Well, I'll say it certainly seems like they've already done it according to the way people were reacting on Sunday, which is fine. It was starting to feel like when the Bucs won Game 5, you're like, well, we're winning Game 6. I mean, it's happening. And so this kind of feels the same way. It's at home. It's in prime time. The Lions may have nothing to play for. And what I wanted to say yesterday was that is a testament to Aaron Rodgers. So I can rip on Aaron Rodgers and I can say I went off this ride. But the fact that Aaron Rodgers is on the Packers is why they have a slight advantage in competition on Sunday night, because NBC looked at it and said, we don't want Jags Titans. I mean, it's a play. They always take the play-in game for the division. They have taken 2 7-9 teams before in the NFC West, or 6-9 teams. They always take it. But they were given the choice of Trevor Lawrence, fun, Josh Dobbs. We just saw him in prime time, if you cared to watch, or Aaron Rodgers in a win-or-go-home game. Well, what about the Lions? It don't matter about the Lions. Yeah, they might, but NBC's like, worst-case scenario, it's Aaron Rodgers has to win or go home. It's Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. So
are you suggesting, though, that benefits the Packers?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Expound on that. I'm not sure I'm there.
Well, because they should be playing at the same time as the Seahawks.
Sure, but why is that a benefit to the? Because you're saying, say Seattle wins and then the Lions.
Seattle wins. Lions have nothing to play for.
Right, but do you really? I mean, Jamal Williams, a guy we all know, is that really going to change the way Jamal Williams comes into Lambeau and wants to win? Like,
it might not. Like the guys, they're gonna. It's gonna be like a bowl game for them, though, where we're gonna play, but if we get banged up or if we get hurt or if I'm hurt coming into this game, maybe I don't play. I got nothing to play for.
Oh, I don't agree with that part.
So you think the Lions are just as scary with nothing to play for as with something to play for?
Absolutely.
No.
I think because let me expound on that. So I think it's because of Dan Campbell and who Dan Campbell is, and because the Lions are who they are as a franchise. If they win, even if the Lions don't make the playoffs, so Seattle wins and then the Lions outcome means nothing, they will get to be above 500. That is a feat. That is an accomplishment for the Detroit Lions.
Not 30. They all found 30 minutes after that they're not in the playoffs.
I don't think it will change the way the Detroit Lions, one of the worst, if not the worst franchise in the NFL, who has a chance to go into Lambeau Field on a Sunday night game, even if they have nothing to play for because the Seahawks just won. I would almost say, like, does that make the Lions more likely to go for it on a random 4th down and say, screw it, we have nothing to lose. Like, this is a bowl game. Let's have fun. Let's just throw everything against the wall. Let's try goofy stuff. Like,
no.
I don't know if the Sunday night matchup part, to me, the fact that the Seahawks are done, I've not yet come around. Maybe you can convince me. I'm open-minded to changing my thought process, but I'm not there yet.
No, I can't convince you. You seem to be where you are. So just watch the game on Sunday after the Seahawks have won, and the Lions won't be the same. I mean, I'm pretty confident I'm right about this. So,
well, tell me. Okay, so Grant, you were making some head nods and curious, like question thinking faces.
Yeah.
Grant's a very good. What's the word?
Nonverbal cue.
On the YouTube. Very nonverbal. Good.
Yeah. Well, first I want to piggyback off of Paul, and then I'll diving board off of Bart, and then I will give my answer. Paul, I think you're onto something in that it will affect the Lions less than it would affect other teams.
Yeah.
I still think there's a drop off. I think if there's one team in the league that would play a meaningless week 17 game or week 18 game really tough, it would be the Lions, but still even the Lions I don't think will match the intensity they would have if they weren't eliminated from the playoffs. So I just want to piggyback there. My diving board off of Bart is thank you for breaking down NBC's thought process, because as a man who has background in television and in radio and knows these things, not something I thought about. So I appreciated that, Bart. Thank you. My answer, are the Packers winning? I might not even watch. I might use my time for something more productive. I don't know what there's no way they lose this game. We've seen this game a million times
I know.
over the last 12 years. I never do.
Bart curse is out. This is the Bart curse.
I never do picks on my show. I don't bet. It's just, if you think that the Packers are losing this game, you must be new here, because we've seen this game a bunch. They're not losing this game. And it's Jared Goff's small hands in the cold at Lambeau. Sunday night, Chris Collinsworth is going to be unbearable to watch. He's going to be so deep in his bag. Lambeau's going to be exhausted. They're going to be talking about it as this church of football. No, Packers aren't losing. No way.
Okay, so the problem with what you just said, and I think you are mostly being 100% sincere, and then part of that was you were just being a storyteller, is we are as journalism graduates, and like, we are narrative focused. Our minds have been trained to focus on narrative and the storytelling nature of, like, you don't come this far to the final part of the third act and lose. Like, that's not the story arc. That makes no sense. What are those movies called? The type of movies where, like, it's a where the ending is negative. Like, there was this movie, it's called Life. It was set in outer space, and then they crash land on, and you're supposed to think like the hero won, and then it's it's noir, I think is the word I'm looking for. Noir. Here, look it up. I gotta Google it real quick. Noir. It means, like, here. No, hold on. Sorry. Pause the pod. We're gonna rewind it.
No,
it's characterized by cynicism, fatalism, and moral ambiguity. His film is okay. So yeah, it doesn't end the way you want. It has an anticlimactic or like a anti-heroic ending. So anyway, like, the football part of it is harder to break down because the narrative makes so much sense, where you don't come this far being 4-8 to 8-8 and then lose at home on Sunday night to the Lions. And like, the thing I was thinking about, and I know that Rodgers kind of sort of walked this back this week, is when they lost in Detroit 2 months ago, Rodgers said, you don't have a season. You don't lose to a team like this. Remember that comment? Like, you don't lose to a team like this. Like, he was very much putting down the Lions, who at the time weren't a good team either, really. So I'm going to say, the Packers win. I think they're the better team. I think the home field advantage in a game like that. I think even if Seattle loses, maybe I can argue that puts more pressure on Detroit. Like, like when you wake up Sunday morning and you're a Lions player, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then you're doing your pregame warmup and you find out, wait, Seahawks lost? Jitters. Like, I don't know. I mean, each player reacts to these things differently. Each person reacts to these things differently. I'm going to say, the Packers win and they go to the playoffs.
I feel like we're talking about them getting into the playoff. I feel like they've been in for 2 weeks. I felt like when they beat the Dolphins and everything went their way and it became pretty clear that they now controlled their own destiny, I felt like they had achieved what we were seeking to achieve. Like they have been playing playoff football. They were playing playoff football.
Yeah, this to me is the playoffs.
Yeah,
they need to win.
So yes, they've been in playoff mode for a couple of weeks. This is just a continuation. I don't see Sunday as this crowning achievement of the last couple of weeks. The crowning of achievement was they were able to get themselves into this play. They earned playing playoff football the last 2 weeks. So I don't see this Sunday and then anything that may happen after. I don't see this as anything new. I don't see this as a new level. This is a continuation of where they've been.
So what happens if they're down 10 at half? Where's the collective mindset of Packer fan? Like, let me before you answer that question, as Grant does his wonderfully perfect YouTube.
Won't be, so they won't be.
Well, they won't be. But okay, when the Vikings blocked that punt on week 17 and they downed it at the 1 yard line, you can't tell me, like, I'll speak for myself. I was like, yep, that's that. Like, blocked punt, Vikings at the 1. And then
I knew we were gonna stop them.
You knew first and goal from the 1.5.
It's a weird thing to claim.
That's opportunistic.
No, I knew. I was like, yeah, they're gonna stop them. And then I was watching the game with my friends and like, they might go for 30 tonight. And then they went for 30, and I thought they might put up 41.
So perfect. Well, I mean, what a wonderful job you did in explaining that. But
that was my LeBron. No, I don't know. I don't know. I felt like if they could stop, and well, Rasul talked about that after. He's like, once we stopped them, then we knew that, and that's ultimately where I am with the team is the defense. The defense. I mean, the Lions. I'm not going to say are more explosive than the Vikings, but they shut down Justin Jefferson to one catch. And
who's they? He, singular.
Him. He's him.
Well, I was watching one play, and sometimes they would help Jefferson. I don't know who had this out here, but there was one play where Jefferson, it was Jair on Jefferson, and then there was another guy like close. And so what the Packers allowed Jair to do was at the line of scrimmage, you get contact. He basically just ran up, pushed Jefferson, and then was off of him, but there was another guy right on him. So the fact that, and this is what I was so excited about with this game is the defense is good. I mean, the defense can be very good. It's something that I've been talking about for a while. The problem is Joe Barry, I thought, was the worst guy to run this defense or didn't understand the kind of players and people that he had on this team. I've been mad at Jair all year for some of the stuff that he does, because he's been losing. But when you get Jair doing the gritty right away, and Paul Allen is the world's dumbest person. That's just a quick aside. But when you get him doing the gritty right away, where that was in Jefferson's head all day because he talked about it in the post game.
Yep.
Jair was quickly in Jefferson's head after Jefferson had a huge week 1, and the defense fed off that. And I think that momentum carries into the next week. So I can't even fathom them being down 10 in this game.
Really quickly. Can I trampoline off a Jair thing that you said?
You're diving boarding, you're trampolining. Yeah.
I just think slide off that take if you would.
I've said this throughout the year, and I believe it to be true. Like, number one, corners are kind of psycho, right? They're a little bit nuts. Like, that's just how they're wired. I don't hang out in locker rooms, but like our guy, Zach Heilprin, who I work with, was talking about it last week. He covers college, pro football. He's like, cornerbacks are the most confident group that you'll meet. So Jair is wired that way. I feel like you best maximize the way he's wired, and you best maximize his personality when you allow him to play a game that matches that personality, right? So if you force him to play zone, he's going to have all this pent up confidence and energy that's kind of going to waste. And if I were Jair, that would drive me nuts because I want to get in someone's face. I want to play the game within the game. And I think the game plan on Sunday versus Jefferson allowed Jair to play the way that he plays best and to maximize all those traits. And that's what you're paying for when you pay a number one corner. So I feel like they got the most return on investment with Jair when they play him that way. That was a really good game plan.
Well, and Bart, you said how Joe Barry didn't know what to do with these guys. Look at the difference in game 1 against the Vikings and game 2 against the Vikings, especially if you build in what Jair said after Packers-Vikings game 1, when he might as well have just thrown Joe Barry under the bus. It was like, I wanted to, they wouldn't let me. I asked, they wouldn't let me. I think there's been a couple instances this year, the Amari Rodgers punt return and kick return situation and the Keyshawn Nixon part of it, where the coaching staff has taken far longer than I think Packers fan would like to realize what feels obvious, that this should be different.
That's what I pin on LaFleur. Like, I pin LaFleur on, maybe he's someone who doesn't want to be too reactionary, but he also, like, the boat's already underwater before he calls for help. It's like, come on, Matt. It's clear that you're.
And by the way, someone texted me over the weekend and said the Packers are undefeated since cutting Amari Rodgers. So of the many strains of this, that would be one of them. Any other thoughts on this before I dive into it?
Well, it's January 4th. And we're talking about finally they did this thing with Jair. Like, I need to remind it's not just late in the season, it's the end of the season. So this is great. Like, good for Joe Barry. It's January 4th that we're talking about this. It's not week 8. So yeah, so I think frustration is fair with it taking too long. Totally.
Let me actually, I thought I was done, but let's talk through this because I don't have a fully formed thought in my head. So you guys can be my sounding board. I think Rodgers has always had this idea. And I think, like, we saw the past, like, week 1, Bart, after the Packers Saints week 1 game in 2021, where they lost, 35-3 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
The impression I got, and I said to you this at the time, I recall talking to you and Horvath about this, Bart, on the air, which was, I'm not going to pay attention to what the Packers do in week 1 during the Rodgers-LaFleur era going forward. And that was true again in 2022. It's a regular season game that counts on the records, but it's not treated that way. I think that Rodgers in particular has this idea that, like, the first half or the first even like 2/3 of a season are warm-up. It's getting to know you. Like, it's, the class comes in and everyone kind of shares a little bit about themselves, but really it's not till the last half of the day, the last quarter of the day, the season in this case. So it's like, I believe I believe that Aaron Rodgers takes this extreme long view in team building and in chemistry building, and in, like, we're not really who we are until December. And when you see this Matt LaFleur undefeated in December record, it starts to bear out to me. And again, I don't want to make this one piece of evidence as like, see, told you. It's not that simple, but it has worked to this point. It almost didn't work. Like, Rodgers kept thinking, okay, like, we're going to come around. We're going to come around. Okay, we beat Dallas. Now we're going to go beat, was it Tennessee? And of course they didn't.
Yeah.
Which especially in hindsight it's a terrible loss. Losing to the Jets at home. Zach Wilson led Jets at home. These are terrible.
Getting handled by the Jets at home.
Washington. I mean, there's some just terrible losses on this season. But, like, has it crossed your mind at all? And again, I don't have a fully formed thought here, but, like, Rodgers, it feels more than anyone I can think of in the NFL, really takes like hey, September, October, and November are a pre-regular season, regular preseason, whatever you want to call it, because really we just need to be playing our best in December. It feels.
I don't know, because they put themselves. I mean, there's no reason that they're alive for the playoffs. There's none. They shouldn't be.
Well, hold on though. Like, let's just play. The Packers are playing their best football of the year. Yes, obviously.
Yeah, but the hole they got in was so bad. They needed so much help, and somehow they got it all. And that, what I think, it rewards the
bad behavior
for bad behavior.
Yeah, they did get lucky, because I think what Rodgers thought is that they would go into that Dallas, Tennessee, Philly trio of games, and like by then they would really have their act together. And they proved that they didn't yet have their act together. But if, like, who's more confident right now going into the playoffs, a Packers fan or an Eagles fan? The Eagles have, 5 more wins than Green Bay? But
Eagles fan.
Why?
Because they're way better than us.
But they haven't played, and I know, the quarterback situation.
Yeah, well, that's it. And you can't say like, well, the Bucs didn't have Middleton, they lost to the Celtics, and then be like, oh, the Eagles don't have Jalen Hurts. They lost 2 in a row.
But there have been a lot of teams in football and basketball throughout sports history that think they can just flip the light switch back on. Like the Brewers in 2021, where they were up by 10 games going into September. They limped like,
they didn't have their quarterback.
That example.
I mean, you're just going to assume that Jalen Hurts just goes right back to MVP mode.
Why wouldn't he? He missed 2 weeks. It's
coming
like
off an week. He's coming off an injury. Like,
look,
I don't know.
A magical regular season turns into a nerve-wracking postseason very, very quickly. Like, and we know this with the Packers. When you get to Christmas and they barely beat the Browns, they barely beat the Ravens, you're like, can we just get to the playoffs? And I don't know. I don't think this Packers team is anywhere near as good as the Niners or the Eagles. Absolutely. But the way their schedule is planning out and the way they've already been in playoff mode for a month, that is really valuable. And that's something you need to consider. I don't know if it's valuable enough to make up for the talent deficit that the Packers have with some of these other NFC contenders, but it's substantial. It's meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to say, and people have alluded to this or hinted at this or joked at this to me online, but they are absolutely correct about my level of confidence and my level of appreciation and every compliment that comes with it since Rodgers cut his hair. I think that I'm not kidding. Getting that haircut that he had,
look,
even after Halloween was so. Look, a haircut. I need a haircut, and not once you get a haircut. Like I think of during COVID when I let my hair go all the way, and I was an unserious person, and then I got my haircut and I focused up, man.
The haircut was only it's whatever. It doesn't have to be your thing, but it was made way worse by the fact that he has to come out and put a ball cap on. Like it's not a haircut that you wear a hat with. It's a haircut that you style up and you leave it like that all day and it's fine. It wasn't meant for TV. It wasn't meant for the sideline. It wasn't meant for a baseball cap. That's the sin. The haircut is whatever. It's,
No, Rodgers haircut is got a war of at least one. Okay. Rodgers haircut above haircut.
Wow.
Is at least 2 games. The Twitter clip. I don't sign off on me being connected to this publicly in a space outside of your hard listeners to this podcast. But you can consider all factors in this turnaround, and why not consider the haircut?
Good for you, Grant. You smelled right away that Bart was going for the clippable part, and you're like, no. We're not clipping wah here.
I'm gonna ruin it.
Yeah, that's fine. This makes it more clippable.
That's why
you're actually not wrong. A promo clip where one of the guests is saying, "Don't clip this," is actually that's good.
But then you punctuated it, Grant, by walking away.
Yeah, you walked away.
But then I might have ruined it when I sat back down because now we're going meta on the meta. So you need to cut it off basically right when I sit back down before I start talking.
Well,
but this part makes it funny. If you put this
I will not be using that as the Twitter clip.
All right. Well, there's 2 different directions based on questions I have that we should pivot to, but I'm going to start with this one because we just talked about it. And Bart, the answer is not allowed to be haircut. That's disqualified. The number one reason, there's many reasons. The number one reason the Packers turned their season around. The number one reason the Packers turned their season around is Keyshawn Nixon. Or
Grant?
I don't know if I can say it's but let's say I need to play by the rules. Because I think
not the only reason, but it's the number one reason.
You know what? It just might be, Paul. So I'll say I think if Nixon is returning kicks, say like post week 4, if he returns kicks against Washington, Detroit, and the Giants, they win one of those games.
Yeah.
Right. Because all of those games were so close. And it's not just about getting a return for a touchdown. Right. And I heard Bill Schmidt on the Packers OT talking about this on Sunday night. It's an extra 15 yards on a kickoff return that starts you at the 30 instead of the 15. That's an extra first down that the offense doesn't have to get. That's an extra 4th and 1 that you don't have to risk trying to convert. That's a huge deal, especially if you expand it over a 3-game sample size, 3 games that they all should have won. They could have won if just one thing had gone differently. So I think just 15 yards of field position here, and of course, obviously, if you get to score, that's a huge deal. But I also think because Packers fans aren't used to a good returner, and we haven't seen a good returner in forever, since the late 90s maybe, we forget the impact that a return can have on the team, right? And I was talking to my buddy who's a Bears fan the other night, and he watched Hester. He's like, oh my God, when Hester would crank one up, the offense would get extra juice. The defense would get extra juice to go out and force a turnover. That stuff is really, really tangible. And I think that helped supercharge the Packers, especially the defense. They were playing faster. They were hitting harder. So yes, I think it's a huge reason. And I hope in this little rant, I outlined a couple different bullet points why I think it's more than just scoring a random touchdown here and there. I think there's lots of reasons a good returner helps a football team.
Bart, Keyshawn Nixon, number one, not the only, but the number one reason the Packers season turned around?
I would agree with Grant and say, I think it shows the team, like, guys that deserve spots will be rewarded in those spots. And also, Amari, it's not just about the 15 yards. It's a great take by Bill, but it's also Amari was costing you yards and costing you possessions, and just was bad. Just and the mood around every time you'd be, we gotta go out here now after that. The Nixon, these kick returns jolt you. I mean, the way it jolted that stadium, it jolted me. Like, one thing that I ended up scrapping from, because I taped like a bunch of yesterday's show, and then it was about, but then one of the things that I wanted to make sure I said today was that brought me all the way back. Me, as a fan. Sure. I am a lifelong Packer fan. I love and adore this team. And this year, I wasn't looking at them the same. And this will happen in any long-term relationship. I know I love you, Packers, but I don't get the same twingy butterfly that I did the first time you went to the movies with me and I cut a hole in my popcorn box. You know what I'm saying? I don't get the same twinge on that one. But this one did. This kick return was so buttery. It got me all the way. It really, so if it did for me, and I think it did for the Packers too.
Putting M&Ms on the top of your movie popcorn bucket, or
Is that a Curb reference? Regardless, but isn't that a Curb where she dumps the Milk Duds and the M&Ms and everything on there, and it's just
I didn't think it is. It was not intended as such, but yes, the milk. And Larry, I think, was not having it.
No, of course not.
I don't really like popcorn. Well, popcorn's never a thing that I go out and seek, but then if I eat it, I eat it all. I don't get popcorn at the movies. I get Junior Mints and a soda.
You get Junior Mints?
Oh, yeah.
It's the perfect movie candy. It's the perfect movie candy. Good take.
And then Paul's got a popcorn machine.
Bar popcorn is different. Bar popcorn is different. Good bar popcorn that's a different conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So
bar popcorn over bar pretzels.
Yeah.
Although I would rather have neither, because as a total germaphobe, it's like no.
I suppose
no communal food.
I want at my bar that think of Tim at McGuire's. I want to share finger food with the people I share company with at my bar. That brings me closer to my fellow patrons. Now, I'm not going into a random bar to do that, but at my home bar, if I were to have a stocking on the wall, for example, I want my fingers in the same popcorn as other patrons of that bar. That brings us closer. That's what makes a bar community, Paul.
I'll take your word for it.
I very much like to shower every day. I like to be clean. I generally think I'm a clean person. Sometimes, yes, I will have a mess around me, but I generally think I'm a clean person. I was very conscious during the pandemic about not, germs and wiping things down. But generally, germs are not something I give any consideration to. If I'm at a bar putting popcorn in, Germs don't even cross my mind.
No,
Not even for a second.
don't
Let me be
waste your time.
Door handles, sometimes for other people, if I don't wash my hands after I pee, which I may not need to if I didn't touch my ween, but I open the door, they're going to be like, did he just touch pee on the door? No, I just don't think about germs. I'll go poop at Walmart. I don't care.
Pee in the sink. I mean, at your bar, do what you do and don't worry about it. I agree. I don't pee in the sink at my bar. That was a joke. Don't clip that. Don't clip that.
To all the stuff about, I probably would be better off if I cared less about germs and door handles and everything. It'd be better mentally to not have to, but no, I constantly am thinking.
And for as much anxiety as I have,
that's what I'm surprised about, that that's not one of them. I mean, good for you. Good for you to not have to have that be one of your.
No, I can't call a restaurant and order a meal to save my life, but germs.
What do you mean?
That's such a Gen X, or that's such a young person.
When Stubby's had closed. Stubby's on the east side? Anyway, this bar closed, and I had $50 in gift cards there. So we're like, oh, shit, we got to use these. So I went online to try to order, and the gift card code isn't corresponding to the website. It wasn't. So I couldn't talk through that process with someone on the other end of the phone, so I had to have my wife call.
Oh, brother. No, that's
because then they were going to know that I was getting food because they were closing and I had gift cards. They knew what I was doing. I just didn't want to do it.
Grant, this reminds me of a conversation Bart and Chuck would have, and hopefully we'll have again at a theater TBD in 2023.
Mm-hmm. Bart
will not send food back. If they bring him in the wrong order, he eats it.
I won't either, for the most part, unless it's something I really hate. Like if I order one kind of burger and they give me another, as long as there's no repulsive cheese on there because I'm not a stinky guy, I'll eat it. Because I've been on the other end. I've been on the other end of that transaction.
Yeah, me too. Also, if you're a customer, it's a great way to try something you wouldn't have normally tried.
Yeah.
Also, and odds are you're gonna like it anyway.
Yeah. What if though, you go to say a taco drive-through restaurant and it's just a disgrace what's inside of said taco? Then
that's just COVID laziness. That's a separate conversation. But
what has happened to our country? What has happened to America?
There's not a bad item on the Taco Bell menu. And also, I think when people go to restaurants, they need to be more liberal and loose about what they order. When I go to a restaurant for the first time, I will normally just ask the server, and they'll be like, "I really like this. Fine, get it, love it, bring it to me." And if you mess it up, I'll also eat it. Because you're doing a hard job right now. It's harder in the year 2023. This country wages a war every day on our service industry folks. I've been on the other side. I'll eat it. Thank you. I'm sure it will be great. Again, thank you. I will eat it. So I'm with Bart on this.
I'm also very picky. So no matter what restaurant I go to, there's really only one or two things I would ever order. I'll go, even if I went to the same restaurant 6 days in a row, I'd probably still get one of two items and not deviate. This is a me problem, just to be clear.
I don't understand how Freems, who goes to Taco Bell and gets the normal soft shell taco?
Agreed. That's another.
Those are add-ons to a meal that come with it. If you're going to go order a la carte.
they're add-ons in a way where I'll have a quesarito and a cheesy gordita crunch and throw 3 crunchy soft shell tacos in there.
They give them to you. Now, if you're not getting the Doritos Loco Taco, I guess I'm not a big fan. Don't like the mess. But if you're going to get that, that's special. The spicy potato soft tacos is different, Grant.
Fantastic item.
But if you just go order, I'll have 3 beef tacos soft shell, and that's your order. Why are you at Taco Bell?
Yeah. Go to Super America and get some microwavable burritos, because at that point,
you're going there for the quesaritos and the enchiladas.
The premium items, as me and my friends call them. You normally get a premium item and a couple value menu items. That's how you construct an order. Chuck just goes straight to the shit part of the menu. I'll have a broken, lukewarm beef crunchy taco, please, and then I'm going to post about it on social media, which I love. I hope he never stops.
They probably don't know how to make the simple taco because they don't have to.
That's all right. do you think it's purposeful? Where it's
This guy
like
ordered 4 tacos. What else did he get? Like, we can use the ingredients from that. No, he just wants 4 of the soft tacos. The very first menu item came up in 1955 and have found a way to create it and call it 30 different other things with flavor and substance. Yeah. He wants just a few parcels of beef
that. He just wants
tortilla. That. That's what the guy wants.
And then when you add to that the fact that they all follow him on Twitter, and so they enjoy the posts of seeing him complain about the tacos. Mm-hmm. So they're like, hey, this is Freems' order. He's the only guy that comes in here and orders just 3 soft shell tacos to go. We are just going to make these things as like slim as possible, and I can't wait to see the tweet.
I'll have 4 hard shell tacos, please, with meat. I want lots of meat in there, please. Don't short me on the meat, thank you. Oh, Chuck at the drive-thru. We need this. God damn it.
Good stuff. He should just get like 5 tacos and then combine it to make 3 really good tacos.
Yes.
And I always love how he jumps to, this isn't one person having a bad day made my food. America is lazy.
Yeah.
I miss Frames. Frames, you got to get on this podcast. Can we pressure Frames again? We were pressuring him pretty good.
He's right, though. He's right. This is as great as the podcast is and the YouTube stream. This has to be bigger. This has to be a live event. You can't give this away for free. He knows his value. I respect him for knowing his value.
Chuck will drive 2 hours at 3:30 in the morning to do a UWM pregame that no one listens to, but he won't do Bart's podcast. Like Chuck just loves it. He loves the game. So why is this too small for him? I don't get that.
Just don't give it away for free.
Bart needs to start a Patreon.
That's what I'm saying. You get this. You get Paul and Grant for free. The Patreon gets you the Chuck episodes.
Freeman's gonna cost you.
No, I like the way I've been doing it now. I like sheepishly have opened up the stuff.
Like the.
I was on the other day and Zach sends me $20. He's like, go buy golden chicken dinner. I didn't ask for the $20, but on my YouTube it says, it's like, want to give this guy money?
With the wacky inflatable arm, 2 men saying,
which that money I do use to support the podcast.
Yes, you do. I've heard rumors of.
This equipment I'm using right now, this software, I get charged for. Okay.
Yeah.
So in other words, Keyshawn Nixon is the number one reason I agree that the Packers turned their season around. You know, one thing I wanted to say actually during the first question, but I think it's still relevant here. The Packers, I think, had a 2.4% chance to make the playoffs a few weeks ago. It was 1%, 2%, somewhere in that range. And there were Packers fans, I think Tony in Texas among them, who were like, they're gonna do it. Like they're gonna do it. Like despite all odds. I'm always like for better and for worse, I'm a statistical analysis type of viewer of sports. When the Brewers, I think it was the 2019 season, the year after their NLCS run, and it was September, and they had like a 2% chance to make the playoffs. And, you know, you're getting phone calls about tickets, and you want to lock in your postseason tickets? I'm like, for what? They have a 2% chance, and then they made it. And like, you know, so that's hard for me as like a 2% chance. And, you know, I think back to the Packers losing the NFC Championship game in 2014, with 99.6% chance of winning that game. So I'm always gonna, in severe significant statistical things, I'm always gonna think, well, if 98% of the time this thing doesn't happen, I'm going to go all in on that bucket, especially when the eye test of a 4-8 Packers team backs up the 1%, 2% chance of making the playoffs. So like, how much of that Luka 60-point game, 60-20-20 game did you guys see like 4 days ago? Do you know what I'm talking about? Luka had 60, 20, and 20. I don't know how much you watched of that. I went back and watched like the final, 5 minutes of regulation, then OT. The fans were leaving the game because the Mavericks were down like 8 with 55 seconds. I didn't see what the statistical probability of the Mavs winning that game was, but it wasn't just like a great shot to end the game or some 60-point game. That game was over.
Well, like Tulane
I have watched
Oklahoma the other day.
Right, but I mean, I have watched thousands of NBA games. Thousands. And I mean, it was my number one sport for many, 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 many years, and I would watch League Pass. I still do. Like, and that game was one of them. That game was over. Like 999 times out of 1,000, that Mavericks game was over, and fans in the arena started to leave, and they missed one of the great historic comebacks ever. This has a very similar probability. And if you, Tony in Texas or others, who are just, steadfast in the Packers are coming back, they can do this, well, then you had more confidence than even Aaron Rodgers had. Because in his post-game press conference after beating the Vikings, he basically said, in paraphrasing slightly, that there were times where he had to put on a brave face for the rest of the team because he was, I think Rodgers said something like, I was steadfast in believing we could do it, but I was also like resigned to the likelihood that we weren't going to. Like that's.
Well, my argument is.
So even Rodgers, let me say, and then I want you to go. I'm saying even Rodgers had to be realistic in doubting that this was actually going to happen. He didn't say it. But he felt it. And if you had more confidence than even Rodgers did, well, then kudos to you. But like, let's just be real about it. Even the quarterback admitted, of course there were times where I was resigned to the likelihood of it not working out this year. Sorry, Bart, go ahead.
No, what it means is it's not confidence. It's hopium. Like I was saying the other day, if you thought at 4-8 the Packers were going to still make the playoffs, you wanted to believe. So when I said they weren't, even though it was, they haven't yet, I guess, but even though you're like, oh, Bart, you were wrong about this team all year. No, I wasn't. I was right about them. And then things changed.
I think
I know that's like twisty logic, but
yeah,
let me
admit defeat.
Let me bungee jump off of what you just said. I think like
diving board, trampoline, bungee jump.
Our morning show host Ebo, who I was on with the other morning, like big Packers homer, like always takes the homer angle, right? And he's like, "Well, I never wavered, I never gave up." It's like, okay, well that's nice, but I don't know if you were ever correct. Like you were being a fan who refused to lay down. But the more I think about those long playoff odds, Paul, I think the biggest hurdle and the reason that number was so slim is because Vegas didn't believe that the Packers could win out. Because if you start looking around the rest of the league, it's like, okay, so the Commanders need to lose 2 or 3. That team is terrible. Their head coach didn't even know the playoff scenarios the other day, right? So we're counting on Geno Smith and Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz. Like I think the reason those playoff odds were so long is because Vegas didn't think the Packers could win out. Well, so if the Packers had that gear switch in them and the defense started playing better, I think the playoff odds, as slim as they seemed, got drastically better because the Packers were clearing the biggest hurdle to the playoffs, which wasn't the league around them. I think that it was always going to work out because you don't trust Geno Smith, you don't trust the Commanders. But when the Packers started to figure it out, it became much more likely because the Packers themselves were their biggest obstacle for most of the season.
Yeah, Bart, I just want to, what bungee jump, trampoline, diving board, I want to
repel off of what he just
well
said.
done. I want to repel off of what Bart said a minute ago. Bart, there's this quote. Grant, did you watch Parks and Rec?
Mm-hmm.
There's this Leslie Knope quote. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes, period, that anyone has ever said. And I had to look it up real quick to make sure I got it word for word. And someone accused Leslie Knope of flip-flopping.
Mm-hmm.
And changing your mind when presented with new information is not flip-flopping. It's like, oh, no, I learned something new. And I thought that she put it perfectly. So I'm going to quote Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation. She said, well, because I learned new information, when I was 4, I thought chocolate milk came from brown cows. And then I flip-flopped when I found out that there was something called chocolate syrup. Anyway, just end quote. Just
to bring up Chuck, that's a fight that's something that, we would butt heads about because I would think one thing and then later I'd change my mind like 3 months later and be like, no, you said this on this date at this time. I'd be like, well, yeah, but now I think this after what just happened.
You can learn new information and evolve your thought process based on the new learnings that you've gathered. It's okay to do this. Everyone just please, it's okay to learn something new and then don't be
Bart, by the way, probably watched that episode of Parks and Rec live on his antenna. for free when it was broadcasted.
I did watch Parks and Rec live. I watched The Office live. I knew
Mm-hmm.
I finished The Office live weekly.
Yeah.
4 years before everybody discovered it.
Arrested Development
stupid.
was another show you patronized early and often.
Arrested Development was a 4-episode finale on a Friday night. Fox buried it.
Yep.
I VCR taped it in my college dorm room.
Same.
We went out to the bar, came back at midnight. Me and my friend Scott watched it together at midnight.
Yeah, Grant, you young prick.
The Seinfeld finale, which I believe came out prior to Grant's birth.
It probably did.
I was at a soccer practice. I was 14, and me and my buddy, my dad was the coach. We said, Dad, we got to leave. We got to go home. And I went to Mike's house to watch the Seinfeld finale.
I didn't do that. But
when Holyfield and Tyson fought, we rented it as 10-year-olds. Or no, 12-year-olds.
You paid like $50 for it on pay-per-view?
Everybody came over and brought a $5 bill.
Nice.
And we had Cool Ranch Doritos and sausage cut up. And then we VCR taped it so that we could watch it whenever at our leisure.
And that's the biting one, right? The ear?
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like I remember of all the important things that have happened, right? Is like
when John Carpenter won The Millionaire for the first time on a Friday night, I watched it live with my parents.
Is he the one that like finally used a lifeline to call the parents, even though he didn't need their help?
I know the answer. I just wanted to tell you I'm going to win $1 million. One of the most epic TV moments of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know where I remember where
Grant, like I'll stream it on YOLO Plus when I get
Shut up. I'm not like I used to tape things on VCR. I remember when the Packers went to the NFC Championship game in 2008 with Favre, and it was the first time in my life that the Packers had a deep playoff run. So my dad's like showing me the way. He's like, all right, we're going to go to the store. We're going to buy 2 VCRs, Grant. We're going to buy 2 tapes, one for the championship game and one for the Super Bowl. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's good. So I remember that. I'm not that young.
The fact though that your dad took you to the store when you were 8 kind of might discredit your case of not being too young.
Well, I was around. I remember the old landline. I had all my friends' homes numbers memorized. So
Did you really?
Bart could never do this. I would call and I'd say, hello, Mrs. So-and-so, is Jack home? And she'd go, no, he's not, but he will be soon.
My girlfriend at the time at 10:01 and the cutoff was 10 and Mr. Spears yelled at me pretty good.
Really?
Do you think, Bart, Vicky Winkler ever listened into those phone calls from a different landline?
Absolutely.
Did you grab your VHS? You're such a douche.
I got a lot I have to go through. This is a blank tape. I don't know why.
Do you have your wedding tape?
No. I have a swim. This is the highlight I made for my senior year of swimming. Pause for laughter. I took a camcorder to every event and like taped and then made an hour-long highlight video for our team. And I presented them at the end of our end of the year banquet. And the coach is like, and everyone's ready to leave. The coach is like, well, why don't we just put it in and watch a little bit? And we all sat there and watched the whole hour after a 3-hour banquet.
Was it good though, or did people want to leave?
As far as high school swim highlight films go,
as good as you'll find.
It was as good as you'll ever.
Wait, I'm confused. It was highlights. How did you record yourself then?
Oh, I had other people record me.
Okay, so you did everyone else, but then you had someone record you.
Yeah, and then I used an independent study class to edit it together. So I sifted through 40 hours of swimming footage.
Oh, can we post this on YouTube?
Once I figure out how to get it off my VCR, I will post it on YouTube.
This is where the money will come in.
The younger generation for being able to edit video, like editing video used to be.
I resent TikTok, yes.
But yeah, it's so
easy now. I still use iMovie. But some of the, like, if it's okay, if I'm going to try to get a social media job, some of these people, what they can do on TikTok, and I didn't get into, not resent, I didn't get into it right away. So now I'm like, old man, hey, you want to, hey, I can tweet a funny joke. Well, can you like gloss up my video? And now I'm just going to be copying what other people do.
That's all TikTok is. You find a trend and you just do your version of it, and then it blows up. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I have another topic for you, Bart. Grant?
Sure.
Let's go.
This is a two-parter, so you're going to have to say if you agree with both parts, or if there's maybe one part that you want to change. All right, we addressed that we all think the Packers are in. They're going to beat Detroit. So
Yeah.
Packers are in, ... The team you least want to face in the opening round is the Cowboys. The team you would most want to face in the opening round is the Vikings. So you're most confident, because right now there's scenarios where they could play, as I understand it, they could play Philly, they could play Dallas, they could play Minnesota, and they could play help me. San Francisco. So there's 4 possibilities. So the team you would be most confident, essentially, in the Packers facing and beating is the Vikings. The team you'd be least confident, so you least want to face, is Dallas. Most want to face, most confident, Minnesota. Least confident, least want to face, Dallas. Bart, or
Cop-out answer first, and I guess I'll give you a real one. I have no preference who we play. I don't care. I have not looked at one scenario. It does not matter to me. They get in.
Like, your confidence is that high, is what you're saying?
No, I don't. Just like I wasn't playing around with the playoff scenarios at 4-8. Like, I'm not
focused on going 1-0 this week, Paul.
You just tell me where we're going. Well, honestly, just tell me, where are we going? Where do we got to go? I don't want to go to any of them. I don't want to go to Dallas, lose to McCarthy after we beat them. I don't want to go to Minnesota. I would love to beat Minnesota again, and there's going to be some momentum riding. So I would almost argue that would be the place you want to go. But I don't want to.
Just to be clear, that was my question. My question was that you would most want to face Minnesota.
But I don't want to lose to them. That would be dumb, especially after we just beat them. Yeah. I don't want to go to San Francisco because we can never win. But I don't know. Is Brock Purdy still the real deal? I'd like to be the team that says no. And I don't want to go to Philadelphia because they're good. So I don't want to go to any of those places.
I got news for you. If you're going to go to the Super Bowl, you're going to all those places.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if we're gonna go to one, if I spend the whole week saying, well, I want to go here, and then maybe we don't have to go, we're gonna have to go to probably 2 or 3 of those places. So yeah. I don't care. They're gonna be in some order in some way. I guess if we're gonna lose to Minnesota at some point, if that's gonna happen, I'd rather it be early where the stakes are lower. But if we're going to beat them, I'd also like it to be early too, so that they don't get that far. So I'm going to say the place I'd most like to go is Minnesota, and the place I'd least like to go is San Francisco based on the history.
Okay.
So,
Grant.
I'm going to cartwheel off of so many things that you just said. I love that we're making time to talk about this. So, on Minnesota. I don't want to go to Minnesota. Here's why. I would love to beat them. Absolutely, totally. If you could guarantee me that we're going to win, send me up there. Hell, I'll go. I'll bike up there. I'll walk up there. I'm all about it. The thing is, I see the Vikings losing at some point in this postseason. I don't believe in this team. So if we just let that naturally occur, Packers fans, we win, right? Because we can say your season you were hacks the whole time. We can't say that if they beat us in the playoffs, right? If we lose in round 1 to San Francisco, they lose to Philly, but we can hold it over them. We beat you late in the year. We were better than a bunch of hacks. If they beat us, we can't do that. So I don't want to lose that card. We currently hold that trump card. We will lose it if we go up there to play. Dallas would be fun. I don't see Aaron Rodgers losing to Dallas in the playoffs at AT&T. I think that's a game the Packers win. So bring that on. I would love to avoid San Francisco. I had a caller ask me the other day who's a Bears fan. He said, Grant, which team would you like to see least? And I asked him, have you seen National Treasure? Because I will quote one of the best lines for that movie is at the end when Harvey Keitel's character is talking to Nicolas Cage and he's like, okay, they're making a deal. And he's like, all right, Ben, what can I give you? And Ben's like, I would really like to not go to prison. Like, I can't begin to describe how much I don't want to go to prison. I can't begin to describe how much I do not want to lose to the 49ers in the playoffs. I do not want to go there. I don't. I'll take
More
Philly.
so than the Vikings?
That's what I'm wondering. I think the most crushing defeat between losing at Philly, losing at Minnesota, losing at San Francisco, losing at Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
The most crushing defeat as a Packers fan would be to lose in Minnesota, I would have assumed.
Yeah. Minnesota. And then I think next would be San Francisco. There's obviously layers to this. Yeah. I think you make the case that any of these top contenders in the NFC could be had on any
Though, don't forget the Mike McCarthy aspect of losing in Dallas.
This Cowboys team, if the Packers lose to Detroit, which they won't, or they're bounced early in the playoffs, I'll probably cheer for this Cowboys team.
Totally.
Yeah. But if McCarthy knocks us out, I don't know that will bother me any more or less than any of these other teams not named Minnesota. I honestly don't think it would bother me that much. I would be okay with seeing this Cowboys team succeed. This is a very likable Cowboys team. I like this team.
I agree. And I like Dak Prescott. So I want to, I don't want to like Derek Carr him too quickly. But like, are we sure Dak is that much better than Derek Carr? Like that he's not.
Cowherd always says he's Kirk Cousins with better PR, which is just great. That's just that's fantastic.
Dak, we don't think Dak's good.
I mean, have you watched some of since he's come back from his injury? Like, I don't know.
The Cowboys are best when Dak is not.
So if we were a Cowboys pod, would you be asking if we should start Cooper Rush? Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. I think let's build on what Grant was just saying. They're better when Dak is not playing. Why is that? Because they focus on Pollard more. When Cooper Rush is the quarterback, they focus on the running game more. It's just a different style.
Yeah, so, they're better when they don't ask Dak to do a lot. I think they're better with Dak, but when his role is less and he has to carry less of a load, the team is better.
And of course, they put less on Cooper Rush because he's not as good as Dak. So I would just assign the Cooper Rush game plan, but with Dak as quarterback, who's better than Cooper Rush. So I don't think I'd be asking Bart to that if this was a Cowboys pod, but I just don't know if I see Dak Prescott as a Super Bowl quarterback.
It's tough.
I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know what
they said about Brian Johnson.
Do you feel that about Brock Purdy? Do you feel that about a dinged up Jalen Hurts? Like, this is the thing. You can make a case that the Packers could go in and beat any one of these teams on any given Sunday.
Yeah, all the Super Bowl quarterbacks are in the AFC.
Well, also, let's be very realistic.
Although he's got Brady and Rodgers.
I was going to say, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic about this. Brady. Tampa Bay and Tom are going to the Super Bowl. So we can talk all we want about San Francisco, Philly, and
get out of here.
Yeah, they are.
Just as an NFL viewer, anything else. Oh, okay. Oh God. As an NFL viewer, would I rather the Vikings than have to watch another Tom Brady Super Bowl? I don't want to answer that question.
Oh, it's not close at all.
Yeah.
But having Minnesota there gives you a hardcore rooting interest.
No, again. I don't want a rooting interest. I want to watch a Super Bowl to just enjoy the game. I don't want, if the Packers aren't in it, that's why, what was the year that was so nice? Was it last year? Rams and Bengals. I just watched the game, enjoyed the game.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's fair. I definitely would be thinking that Dak could be the next Derek Carr. And by the way, Bart, have you on this pod yet, demolished Rami Makloff? Have you publicly done that yet?
No, I went through some old tweets the other day and retweeted when Rami was saying that Derek Carr is better than Josh Allen, who I still think Rami thinks Josh Allen is Josh Rosen. I'm pretty sure that he still thinks that.
I'd like to take a moment, this opportunity to denounce Rami Makloff in one context, in that you had him on CBS Sports Radio and you build him as a Kings guy, and he is. Don't say you haven't been to a game. Don't say you haven't. Lie. It's fine. No one gives a shit. Lie.
Yeah.
Lie.
He says, I actually haven't been to a game yet. I hear they're fun.
Yeah. And it's the Golden One Center. It's not the Golden One Arena. So as someone who watches a lot of Kings basketball and has for the last couple of years,
4 hours of national time, which is so rare and so precious. And I bring on a dear friend to give him a boost to talk Kings. And he doesn't know the name of the arena because he's never even sniffed out where it could possibly be.
Also, what is he doing in Sacramento? What occupies his time to where he can't go see a King? That should have been first week. First week you go to a Kings game.
Well, he's got a dog and
Yeah.
That was
bad.
I was listening. I was in the bathroom at the time. I was brushing my teeth. I remember where I was, and I'm like, you haven't been. Don't admit you haven't been.
I mean,
there.
you're way more of a Kings guy than Rami.
I also thought that in the moment, but that's a little narcissistic of me. They've been my West Coast team for years. I was gutted when they traded Halliburton. Not on the level of the Hater trade, but it was up there.
Yeah.
Me and Sparky bond over. His son's a big Kings fan, I guess. He texts me sometimes when the King get big wins. And to say that, I look forward to getting to a game, fucking lie and say that you've been to a lot of them. It makes no difference.
By the way, I was going to comment that we got through this whole pod without any swears.
Sorry.
And now, but that's, this is still like an hour's worth of PG rated content. I think PG, maybe went PG, but no swears. Went pretty far.
I talked about getting jacked off in a popcorn.
I feel like you alluded to it.
You alluded to it. Now you've really just decided, like, let's just be very explicit about what's happening. I want to answer my own topic.
Yeah, Paul, what do you think, by the way? I feel like you come up with these topics and then you wait for us to give our
Paul's always like, I don't really
topic.
know my thought yet. I'm still framing it. I'll let you guys take all the shit.
It's in the workshop.
It's in the
workshopping.
Hey, you know why that is? Because I don't want to flip-flop. I'm still deciding how I feel about something. I think I am thinking out loud.
Take your time.
I would say too, I am definitely Grant. Quarterback wins are a good stat.
Because people are too anti-quarterback wins now. People are saying quarterback wins are not at all a stat. They're a pretty big part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bart, you're nodding. Quarterback wins are a good stat, a representative stat.
Well, because of what Grant said, people are so anti-quarterback wins.
Yeah. They're not everything, but they're not nothing. And lots of people say the quarterback wins are nothing. That's not true. That's not true.
So I would tell you historically, I would have said, quarterback wins are not a good representative stat. I do agree, like the conversation has probably shifted too far, too quickly, to too far of like an extreme. But I would have historically told you, like, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a record. The Packers have a record with him as quarterback. So, like, I know it's kind of like an annoying nuance, but I would have said that. Now, here's why I bring that question up to answer the original topic. San Francisco is obviously a perpetual thorn in the Packers' side. And I don't want to say quarterback wins and all of this other stuff, but if an Aaron Rodgers-led team loses to a Brock Purdy-led team, then what are we even doing? We think about like roster construction at the NFL level as you get a quarterback and then you figure the rest out. If you don't have a quarterback, you have nothing. If Mr. Irrelevant rookie Brock Purdy leads the 49ers, even at home, past a $60 million cap hit quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, I don't, you know what I mean? Like that, for me, that is a game changer in terms of the way that I think, and again, one example does not make a case, right? Maybe that's the outlier. But I'm not worried about San Francisco because and by the way,
you need a quarterback, Paul.
You need so then why are you worried about San Francisco? You're worried that Brock Purdy is going to beat Aaron Rodgers? What? Like, so talk me through that then, because I can't believe that is possible.
Well,
everything I've known
about some of these Super Bowl winners, and if they don't have a great quarterback, it's their defense is historically good. So the Niners have a very good defense. Also, the Niners do have a lot of other weapons, and this is why we always want more weapons. We got to focus on McCaffrey. We got to focus on Debo. We got to focus on Kittle, and that's going to allow a guy to get open, and that's going to allow like Ray, what's his name, McLeod the third, or Jawan Johnson, or Jennings. I mean, you're going to have these guys pop a couple touchdowns, and all of a sudden, Brock Purdy's got 297 and 3 touchdowns, and it's like, oh my God, he beat the Packers. You just have you need a quarterback.
But then we're saying Brock Purdy is a quarterback. Like, I mean, duh. But I'm saying like he is.
No, more often than not, you win with the quarterback. The Niners are a special case because they've got such great skilled players.
Why are they a special case? Because I don't think the Niners are that much better at talent acquisition. Like, they've traded for some players. I think the Niners have an aura about them on both sides of the ball. Like,
I think like the Chiefs, like Mahomes makes all those guys outside of Kelsey.
Lifts everyone up.
But with the Niners, the other guys lift up Purdy or Jimmy or Trey.
But what is it about the Niners? There are other teams with good running backs, with a good left tackle, Trent Williams. Like,
What is it about the
think
Niners? I don't know.
just-
LaFleur can't beat his friend.
And that's what I'm saying. They have this edge, and it's on defense too. And it doesn't matter. It was Saleh, now it's DeMeco Ryans. These guys, like, they're not all first-round picks on defense, but they hit really hard, and they play this brand of football that is just different than everyone else. And I don't know if it's because they have more cap space because of their quarterback. I don't think it's because they draft that much better. I just think it's an organizational thing. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it's something that the Packers absolutely do not have. The Niners have it 100%. The Packers have it 1%. And we've seen that a couple times in the last decade.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not going to put San Francisco in my list on either direction. But again, like a Brock Purdy led team being an Aaron Rodgers led team should be extremely unlikely. If quarterback is the most important position in sports, not in football, in sports, which I think is totally fair and accurate, it shouldn't happen. It could happen. It could happen. If the talent disparity everywhere else is that significant, then and the home field advantage and the LaFleur versus Shanahan factor, there's other things. Dallas, I'm definitely down on Dak. So I'm not. I would say Philly, and again, Bart, I know you can rightfully give me a hard time about this because I'm waffling as I think this through, as I talk this through, and I have a live brainstorm.
Waffle.
But the Eagles, I don't know what to make of the fact that they haven't won in a while. Like, did they peak? Like, or does Jalen Hurts come back and they're just the Eagles again?
They lost 2 games.
But I mean, they were undefeated 4 weeks ago.
It's a what have you done for me lately league, Bart.
And by the way, Philly, if they lose and don't get the number 1 seed this upcoming weekend, that would be 3 losses in a row. Now
they lost at Dallas barely with Gardner Minshew, and then they just lost to the Saints in a game that your Eagles thing is weird.
So you're just convinced Jalen Hurts comes back and they just
if this was the Packers and they were without Rodgers for 2 games and then Jordan Love started and they barely lost to Dallas and then lost at home to a Saints team and they blew the number 1 seed, would we be freaking out? We'd say, no, wait till Rodgers gets back. And then we'd say, well, he might be hurt. And you'd say, he's played hurt his whole life. I
just wonder how much the momentum for the rest of the team
vibes.
Yeah, the vibe. I mean, you learn how to win, you learn how to lose, all those cliches. I don't know. And Minnesota, to round out the question, I'm sure everyone's talked about it this week. They have a negative point differential this season. Like they've given up more points than they've scored. The Vikings have.
Well, they suck.
I think the scariest team for the Packers to face, I'm going to say Philly. And
what the fuck?
This is how it works, Bart. When you're going through your thoughts, you didn't think I was going there.
I thought you were going to say the Bucks.
They can't go to Tampa yet.
Well, yet, yeah. I don't want to go to US Bank. I don't want to go up there. That's a really hard place to play. It's a really hard place.
Is that where the Sacramento Kings play? US Bank.
I haven't got out to a game yet.
The United States Bank Arena.
All right, finish your answer.
Yeah, I think Philly would be the toughest. I think.
Yeah, because they run the football.
And I think you would most want to go to Minnesota because I think Minnesota is the least of those 4 teams. I think Minnesota is the worst of the 4, so you want to play the worst of the 4.
Boys, I cherish each of your friendship and camaraderie. And I'm glad that you two are getting to know each other a little better.
And by the way, Grant, guess what I've listened to on podcasts since we last did this?
Oh, what's that?
The Wisco Sports Show.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Death Cab for Cutie and The Wallflowers because I'm trying to better get a grasp on the music of the people who I hang out with.
Well, I asked my Death Cab friend, I asked him that you told me which album to start with, and I think we agreed on Transatlanticism.
Okay.
I listened to December 21st, Matt LaFleur Erasure and Eric Seeger episode. I'm looking at my listens here. I listened to – wait, where's the rest of mine?
All right, I'm gonna end this episode. So thank you
not,
guys.
Not poo-pooing this loss. This defense reeks.
All right, well, I'm ending the show.
That's fine. I was just
Paul's trying to prove his love to Grant. It's time to go. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back. Live Bucks after Raptors. Live Bucks after Raptors.
Thank God.